Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. I am Ryan Wormeli, joined, as I will be every Tuesday, all season long, by Andrew Erickson. Erickson, how are you doing, buddy? We are one full slate of games into the 2025 season.
I'm doing pretty good, Worm. A lot of action to break down from all the exciting games that we had in week 16. Geez, in week 1, of course, my mind is all over the place.
You're ready for it to be week 16 already.
It feels like week 16. That must be what my brain is going through right now. But a lot of just really fun games to watch. It just seemed like rewatching some of these games, going down to the fourth quarter, going down to the final drive with one team a chance to win, one team a chance to stop the game-winning drive. Just a lot of fun action. I know that your favorite game was obviously the Ravens and Bills going head-to-head. I know that game was a ton of fun to watch. So, sorry, just had to mention it. I'm sorry.
You didn't, though, is the thing.
Yeah, no, I didn't. But, hey, don't worry, man. My Patriots also didn't win, so it's okay. We're looking forward to week 2.
Not in the same way. There's no comparison there. Don't need to talk about it.
Both lost by one score, so...
I do want to talk about one game. I had an obligation last night, so I did not watch any of Vikings Bears, which I was really disappointed about because I was really curious to see year 2 of Caleb Williams with Ben Johnson now, and I was really curious to see year technically 2, but basically 1 of J.J. McCarthy. So I did not get to watch this game. I wanted to kind of just take a moment here. We will do like a little small Monday Night Football recap most of these weeks. I basically just want you to kind of tell me like what I should know about this game in terms of fantasy takeaways. I'm looking at the box score right now. I see Caleb Williams rushed for 58 yards and a touchdown. He threw for 210 and 1 touchdown, so I'm curious how he looked. Odunze catching a touchdown. I like leading the team in targets. I like as well as somebody who's really high on Odunze this year. You know, Jefferson, just 4 catches on his 7 targets, just 44 yards. So it looks like maybe not a ton of volume and explosiveness from the Vikings game, passing game, but J.J. McCarthy has 3 total touchdowns, it appears. So I just kind of running through the box score there. What were the actual real fantasy takeaways as somebody who watched the game?
Yeah, man, I think that one of the things was like the Vikings offense was like non-existent in the first half. You're like, wait, what's going on? Like, this is like not what we expected necessarily out of the gates from McCarthy, but then in the fourth quarter, the dude just turned it on and just started throwing touchdowns like left and right. So I think it's just the progression of 2 young quarterbacks taking that next step in year 2. And I mean, give credit to McCarthy. Like, again, someone that it didn't look like everything was there to start the game, but I don't know, something finally clicked at the end of the game, and then he just started making big plays, using his top receivers. So again, Jefferson catching a touchdown, Aaron Jones catching a touchdown. Jordan Mason was the leading rusher. I guess I wouldn't be surprised by that type of box score where, yes, Mason should lead this team in rushing yards. Like, that shouldn't be a surprise. But at the same time, Aaron Jones, 44 receiving yards, a receiving touchdown. So both these guys can coexist in this offense. It's not just about, well, who's going to see most carries. It's not about that. It's both guys are going to be used and deployed in a way, and especially with a young quarterback, that the Vikings offense is leaning on these 2 running backs, and both guys, again, Mason didn't find the end zone, but he rushed for 68 yards on 15 carries. Like, he saw a decent amount of touches where he would have been a viable flex or RB2 play. Caleb Williams, again, using his legs, he scored a rushing touchdown on the game's opening drive. DJ Moore was seeing backfield carries, like not just like reverses, just like DJ Moore's in the backfield, lined up at running back. Like, let's hand the ball off to him, because it was Swift as the bell cow. Again, not inspiring in any way. 17 carries for 53 yards, 3 yards per attempt. But
the only running back to get a carry, though, for Chicago.
Yes, so Monangai played in this game as the RB2. Roshan Johnson was inactive, but Monangai, he didn't get any carries. Like, he had 1 catch. So, and then Odunze, like, I think the thing with him was always a bet on the touchdowns. Obviously catching a touchdown in this game, being a red zone threat. I think I was going back to a rankings debate I had so much trouble with during draft season was Odunze versus Pearsall versus Egbuka. And they all kind of seem like hits after week 1. So you're like, right, the answer was all of them. So great. You feel good about those 3 guys, where they were being drafted. So yeah, again, there's more takeaways. You guys can read the my article that kind of recaps all the games. So I'll have a more in-depth analysis of the Bears and Vikings as I kind of get caught up on everything from Monday night. But those are some of my takeaways. But overall, a really fun game to really cap off. Not week 16, Worm, but week 1.
Rest of the season, McCarthy or Caleb?
I will still go with Caleb Williams. But
okay,
both guys are on the up and up.
Yeah, interesting. All right, well, let's dive into the show. So the way we're going to open the show, besides maybe like a quick Monday Night Football reaction, depending on the week and how relevant it is with some kind of high-level strategy advice from Erickson. This is going to be something that he is thinking about at this point in the season. It can be a strategy that is based on the time of year. It can be a strategy based on something he likes to do. Every year after week 1, these are the archetypes of player that I target, that sort of thing. It can be about a specific player. Really, any direction Erickson wants to take it, this is his segment to kind of, it doesn't have to be like a true monologue, but really just kind of share with us his overall trade strategy right now. So this is the first one of the year, coming off of the first actual games we've gotten heading into week 2. Erickson, what are you thinking about trade strategy-wise?
So this is actually going to be twofold answer. So the number one thing is I think that the groupthink has gone too far where now it seems like nobody wants to react to week 1 at all. It's all just can't overreact. You can't overreact. So we're just not going to react at all to anything we saw in week 1. Like, I think that's wrong. Like, we have to react somewhat. Now, I agree that we shouldn't overreact to everything. Like, oh, the Bengals offense is going to be terrible every single week. Like, no. Like, this happens every single year with the Bengals. They always suck against the Browns. It was early in the season. They're going to bounce back. They're going to be fine. So I think that it is maybe more advantageous now to maybe take a little bit more from what we actually did see in week 1 instead of just not reacting at all, pretending everything is fine. For example, like the Miami Dolphins, right? It seems like that is going to head south. And I feel like that's not going to get any better. It's probably just going to get worse for that Dolphins franchise. So those are potential sell low type of propositions. That's kind of what I'm thinking when it comes to those types of teams. And the other thing I would think about is, well, what was your expectation of some of these players that disappointed in week 1? Was that your expectation going in? Because I had a couple players in mind that I was expecting games where they would kind of flop. So when they flop in week 1, I'm not viewing them in any different way than I did during redraft season. The perfect example being Calvin Ridley. We talked about him ad nauseum. We loved him, long-term outlook, but we just pointed to like week 1's probably going to be rough at Denver. And what was it? Rough. And I mean, he got the Shatan treatment. He was basically not used at all in the first 3 quarters of the game. And when he even had opportunities, he was dropping passes, did not look good. But I didn't see anything from Cam Ward that suggested to me, okay, like this guy's not ready for the prime time. Like, no, he is. If anything, it's Callahan that's holding him back, his head coach, in the play calling. So I think that, and as we'll talk about our buys and sells for week 1, or coming out of week 1, adjusting your expectations from what you were looking for these players to do. And if they disappointed you, but you were expecting disappointment, it's really easy to go out and buy those players because, hey, I didn't really expect a lot from this player, and vice versa. If you were expecting a player to hit and they hit, I don't think you really need to adjust and be like, oh, well, I need to sell high on this player. Like, if you like Javonte, like, you don't need to jump off the bandwagon after he had looked good in his first game, scored 2 touchdowns. Like, I think that's the immediate thing we think is like, oh, man, this guy that I got late did good. It must be a trap. It's like, no. Like, you may have just gotten a really good value on a player that was undervalued in draft season, and you take that to the bank. And you profit. So those are 2 things I'm kind of thinking about as I look at the landscape for week 1 and doing some buys and sells.
We're going to get into Calvin Ridley more. He was the first name you sent me to put in the sheet. You basically sent me his name in July when we figured out we were doing the show together. So we're going to get to him in a moment to kick things off. I think Javonte is a really good example, though, of the point you're trying to make. I really liked Javonte this year. You, me, and Deebo. It was funny, when he had his 2 touchdowns on the opening night game, I went back and I found it. In late May, the 3 of us had a 7.5-minute conversation on a show where we were imploring people to draft Javonte Williams. We weren't saying take him in the top 20. We were saying RB 37 was just too low. And one of the reasons that I felt that way was because I was like, this is too low for a guy who has a real shot at double-digit touchdowns this year because of the opportunity in this offense. It's not because I thought he was going to set the world on fire. It's not because I thought he was going to rewrite the history books. It's because the exact game we saw play out against Philly is the type of thing that I thought was in his outcomes for this season. A few times, he's not going to have 2 touchdowns every game, but like at some point in the year that could happen. So just because it looked inefficient and he's not going to get 2 touchdowns every week doesn't mean he's an auto sell. Now, if you can get the right thing for him, you can consider it, right? I'm not saying that he's an auto hold either. We're actually going to talk about him briefly later on at the show, but I think he's a good example of the point you're trying to make, which is if somebody did something that you were kind of buying into in either direction in draft season, you don't have to just assume regression is coming.
Yeah, you can. Again, we spend all off season trying to make the right calls and make the right decisions. And when the things work out in week 1, it doesn't necessarily mean, oh, I got lucky. I should pivot off of my take from all the off season. I mean, you can be right and be confirmed that you were right after week 1. And there's also circumstances where maybe you're adjusting your priors. I think that you should be open to changing your opinions on certain things after we see what happened in week one, especially if it was something that you didn't see coming, where you expected a player to be used like X and then they end up being used like Y, or you expected this backfield to be a committee and then end up not being, or vice versa. So I really try to take in, well, what did we see in week one that was actually new information that we would use to, again, construct our rest of season rankings, where it just essentially is, okay, if we were going to draft again, how would we draft these players? And obviously a guy like Javonte, well, we feel more confident that he is the clear-cut RB1 for the Dallas Cowboys, ahead of Miles Sanders, ahead of Jaden Blue. So he would be ranked higher than he was when drafts close around outside the top 30 running backs.
Before we get to Calvin Ridley, if you want a chance to win the crown jewel of any fantasy football league, the perpetual fantasy football trophy, courtesy of our good friends at Trophy Smack, the #1 destination for epic fantasy football hardware, then this is your shot. This gorgeous black trophy comes with a perpetual base so you can engrave your league champion year after year. It's not just a prize, it's a legacy piece. To enter, all you need to do is subscribe to the FantasyPros YouTube channel right now and drop a comment below on any of our videos. That is it. We will be announcing a winner right here on the channel, so be sure to turn on those notifications so you don't miss your chance to claim your prize. All right, Erickson, I'm clearing the paint here. Players to buy. Calvin Ridley, right off the bat. We've been talking about it for months. This is the moment. Like I've been waiting for this, like I said, for about 8 weeks here. Why should you buy Calvin Ridley?
Because the matchup against the Denver Broncos, we knew it was going to be brutal. We didn't want to play him this week, and predictably so, he got shut down, just 4 catches. But he saw a season high, or a team high, 8 targets, 28% target share. Again, he was locked down by Surtain for most of that game, and he did have a drop. So even when he had opportunities, he just didn't really deliver. I wouldn't read too much into the Ayu Manor targets. I think that was a relationship between Surtain doing so much on Ridley that it really opened up opportunities for Ayu Manor, the rookie. I do like him long term, but I think that still right now Ridley is the guy you want to buy here. I mean, Tyler Lockett was a ghost in that game. Like, I barely even noticed that he was like playing. So Ridley, I think, is still the clear-cut #1. I think the schedule is going to lighten up for the Tennessee Titans. I didn't think Cam Ward can show. I think he's shown that he can be an elevator for wide receivers. The fact that he was willing his way against. I mean, the guy almost covered against the Denver Broncos on the road with a day 3 rookie receiver as his leading receiver in the game. Like, that's what he was working with. His J.C. Latham got hurt, one of his starting tackles, hostile environment. So I don't think the moment's too big for Cam Ward. I think that Ridley is going to be a bounce-back candidate. And for all the reasons we talked about him during draft season, why we liked him so much, those are all still apparent. So you don't need to write him off after just one bad week when it was arguably the worst matchup you could ask for a receiver in week 1.
I thought Cam Ward really passed the eye test for me. Yeah. Not saying that he's going to be a super-duper megastar, but just like this is going to be a capable NFL quarterback. Like that, it is a question, right? Like, until you actually see it in a real NFL game, you can't know for sure, even for the #1 overall pick. And again, you look at the stat line, it's like 12 of 28, 112 yards, no touchdowns, no pick. Like, that doesn't look very good. But watching the game, I felt like he just really looked poised and like he belonged, and like the type of guy who, if he's giving Calvin Ridley 8 targets most weeks, we're going to be really happy with that. Like, he can support a receiver in that way. And I just came away more impressed than I expected to, especially, like I said, given the stat line. And yeah, like I can't imagine Ridley has a tougher matchup on the slate the rest of the season.
No, I don't think that he does. I mean, when you're facing the reigning defensive player of the year, like, you're just going to get locked down. Even on the Broncos, they were talking about, well, it's basically 10 on 10 because Surtain just took Ridley out of the game.
So what would you trade for Ridley then? Like, what specifically would you be looking to move for him? It doesn't need to be a name. It can be like kind of an archetype of player.
I think any of these receivers that just kind of popped off in week 1 that you probably drafted significantly later than Calvin Ridley. Again, I don't think in my rest of season rankings, I don't think I really moved him down substantially from where I was drafting him. So I think that he was inside my top 30 receivers. I think that looking at any of these players where maybe they're going to be facing more target competition in the future with guys returning to the starting lineup, if guys are benefiting from injuries, I just think that Ridley's probably going to be the guy the number one receiver for the rest of the season for the Tennessee Titans. So, again, check out the rest of season rankings if you're looking for potential trade names, because you'll get, okay, around this area, it's this particular player that you can get for a guy like Calvin Ridley. But again, I'm just not willing to write him off after just an absolutely brutal match. Because again, if it had not been Calvin Ridley that was sacrificed in week one, it would have been someone else that had to draw the Surtain matchup. It would have been really disappointing.
We're all in agreement on Calvin Ridley. You, me, everybody, FantasyPros, everybody in the world. So great call there. Can't argue with it. An obvious name that we couldn't not include. Let's go to your second player to buy.
Going with TreVeon Henderson, running back for the New England Patriots. My New England Patriots. So Henderson led the Patriots in rushing yards in week one. He had 5 carries for 25 yards, and he ended up leading the team in rushing. Ramondre Stevenson looked like he was running with cement shoes. Not a great look for Stevenson. Yes, the snaps were very much in favor of Ramondre at 65% versus Henderson's 35%, but you could just clearly tell that the Patriots offense just moved so much better when Henderson was on the field. First drive, he doesn't play at all. They go 3 and out, and then immediately he comes in on the second drive, and they're able to move the ball effectively. So he still caught 6 passes, where he's offering you a floor in these PPR, half PPR formats that you don't always get from rookie running backs out of the get-go, or right out of the gate. So I think that there's a floor there with the receiving that he's being involved a lot. I mean, 6 catches for a rookie in his debut as a running back, that's significant. So I don't want to overlook that. And we're going to get a bounce back effort from this Patriots offense, I think, because they're playing the Dolphins in week 2. Again, so Patriots did not look great collectively in week 1, but you know who looked worse? The Miami Dolphins, the entire team.
I can't believe how bad Miami looked.
They looked like really bad.
I actually was fading the narrative a bit because there was a lot of like, vibes in Miami are really bad. Like, this thing could really like completely fall off the rails. And I was like, you know what? Like, they still have Jalen Waddle. They still have Tyreek Hill. Tua is healthy right now. They have Devon Achane. Mike McDaniel like can design offense, especially when he's like been in the lab all summer. I was like, I'm gonna kind of go against this. I picked them in my survivor pool for week 1 because I was like, I was like, well, they faced the Colts who are bad, and I was like, they're healthy right now. They might not be healthy in October, but they're healthy now. And I think everybody's way overreacting to this. And boy, did I look like a fool. I mean, could hardly have gone worse. And I knew it was a risk picking them. It wasn't like I had like a ton of confidence. You try and game the system and find teams that other people aren't picking. But holy cow, I that is the most like. This team quit halfway through week 1 that I can recall seeing in a long time.
Yeah, the vibes. Again, sometimes we're right about this stuff with the vibes. With the Dolphins, yeah, bad vibes entering the year, and so far bad vibes coming out of week 1. But on the other side of the coin, Jets. I would say the Jets also had kind of bad vibes around them, and then they came out and just like gangbusters. So that was the other point of sometimes the vibes is right, sometimes it's wrong. But is it going to get better in week 2? I'm not as optimistic about that for Miami's sake. So that's why I want to buy into this Patriots offense, getting a bounce back here. I think that Henderson is the best player on the Patriots offense. He's like one of the few guys that has a ton of juice. I think that they have to realize that if they want to start winning games, they have to keep him more involved. And yes, he's always going to be on some type of snap count to an extent, just so they don't overload him. But as long as he's getting high value opportunities, also too, it was a wet field that they were playing on in New England in week 1. So not as many opportunities, I think, to generate as many explosive plays. Now, I know the Raiders had no problem with that, but I think the Patriots offense is in for a bounce back. And I think Henderson, again, a guy that we're really excited about, just kind of put up a lackluster week 1. He's still a really talented rookie from a strong rookie class that there's a buying window that might get closed shut if he puts up a big game in Miami. So I want to try to get ahead of that.
By the way, just because we're not talking about him and we're in this game right now, Ashton Jeanty, like 19 for 38. He did get a touchdown, but averaging 2 yards per carry. I would also consider him a buy candidate just because he's very talented, and that was just his first ever NFL game. And I'm not saying I would give up like the house for him, but I would see if maybe there's an opportunity to buy coming off of his debut as this really ballyhooed prospect under 40 yards rushing. I would see what your opportunity is there.
Great.
Let's go to your next player to buy.
Another receiver that I wasn't necessarily super high on entering just week 1, and it was George Pickens. So, again, lackluster debut with the Dallas Cowboys. I didn't like the matchup playing against the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I probably would have changed my tune if I knew that Jalen Carter was going to get ejected on the first game. I also would have told people not to bench Dak Prescott. But it ended up kind of working out. This is one of those things where it's like, was the process right? Did I just get lucky with the results? Because Dak looked fantastic right? But he just didn't score any fantasy points. So sometimes you get lucky with calls like that. But that being said, George Pickens did not put up a good stat line, just 3 for 30 on 4 targets. However, I still think that from an involvement standpoint, I mean, he played basically every single down. He ran around on 90% of the dropbacks. I want receivers attached to Dak Prescott if this offense is going to be throwing the ball a ton. And Dak just looked really good. Like, he looked healthy. He looked like he was moving around in the pocket really well, making plays off structure. So, yeah, those are reasons why I want to buy in George Pickens, who a lot of people bought into. We like the upside with him. The upside case still exists with him, except now it's at a fraction of the cost because he just disappointed in week 1. So, again, this is where I'm looking for angles this week, is who just disappointed in week 1, where the bet hasn't really changed. The bet on George Pickens hasn't really changed. Again, it was his first game ever with Dak Prescott. So I think that this is only going to get better as the season progresses. And now that he's significantly cheaper, I think, to acquire, I'm willing to take it on because I feel like there's way less risk. Like, the same amount of risk is still baked in, but it just doesn't cost nearly as much to try to acquire a guy like George Pickens. And again, I didn't like that matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles on the road. So Pickens for me would be another guy to buy after just a meh week 1.
I was really high during draft season on the idea of the Cowboys being the poor man's Bengals. And then I also felt that way about the Panthers being kind of the poor man's Cowboys. The Panthers side maybe doesn't look quite as good, but the Cowboys one, like, I think was spot on. I wasn't the only one saying it. I'm not trying to say, like, I deserve all the credit in the world for that. But, like, I was in strong agreement on that point, and I think it looks really clear. So the fact that Pickens didn't have a huge game, I don't care about. I really do think he's going to be the T. Higgins in this offense, and this is going to be an off. I know they only scored 20 points, but the Eagles are a very good team, even with Jalen Carter not in there. Like, I think in most weeks this is going to be the team that scores like closer to 30, and I think Lamb, Pickens, and Javonte, as long as he's getting all the workload he can get, and then Dak, I think those 4 again are going to be the equivalent poor man's version of Burrow, Chase, Higgins, and Chase Brown. And I'd be looking to buy any of them. Now CeeDee Lamb's going to cost a ton, so that's a lot harder. But Dak coming off a bad game, Javonte Williams, if somebody is looking to sell, because they think he's going to regress and isn't looking for that much, and then Pickens, like, I think all of these guys are really good buys, honestly.
I think, too, with Pickens, I believe that he picked up a deep pass interference call. If he just catches that instead of getting a PI, then you kind of feel way different. Yeah, better. You feel way different about the box score. It's so much of this, too, with buying players, selling players, is did they catch the touchdown or not catch the touchdown? Because it just moves the needle so significantly between a player having a great game and a player having a meh game, when it's just because he caught a touchdown this week doesn't mean he won't catch one next week. And so, yeah.
It's really simple. I sometimes wonder if the best strategy in fantasy football is just target the guys who like drew a lot of defensive pass interference calls, because if those yards counted, their stats would look so much better. Like,
it's not. I mean, you're definitely onto something here. It's really because just because you caught touchdowns last week doesn't necessarily mean like touchdowns aren't necessarily predictive. It's really just the touchdown opportunities that are really more predictive of future touchdowns.
Yeah. We are extremely excited to announce our new presenting sponsor, Hard Rock Bet. Everybody knows and loves the Hard Rock hotels and casinos, and now you can use the top-rated Hard Rock Bet Sportsbook to place your bets all NFL season and beyond. Hard Rock Bet is the only legal sportsbook in the state of Florida and is also available in Arizona, Ohio, New Jersey, Indiana, Tennessee, Virginia, Illinois, and Colorado, with more states launching all the time. You can also play on Hard Rock Bet's online casino if you are in New Jersey. From here on out, you'll start to see us use Hard Rock Bet lines when we're talking about the games. So as we gear up for the NFL season, sign up for Hard Rock Bet, make a $5 bet, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Head over to Hard Rock Bet, sign up, and make your first deposit today. Erickson, let's get to the players to sell. Who do you have for us?
Deebo Samuel. This is my wide receiver sell, and going back to what were my expectations going in for week 1. I was high on Deebo. For week 1 rankings, above ECR, just because I thought he's been there the entire training camp for the Commanders. Terry McLaurin was holding out, so I really felt that Deebo's healthy right now. They're going to involve him from the jump, and that's exactly what we saw. He had a monster game. 10 targets, 7 catches, 77 yards. He also had a 19-yard rushing touchdown. But this is why I also thought it's going to make him the perfect sell high candidate to start the year. Because you can get a lot for Deebo right now. Because, is he the new number 1? I don't think so. Remember, Terry McLaurin, he played all the snaps in this game, but I don't think that he was probably 100%. I think that if he told people that, he's probably lying to them. He missed so much of training camp. We see this with guys coming off of holdouts with their contracts. They don't hit the ground running until a couple weeks into the year. Even Jamar Chase, as great as he was in 2024, the Triple Crown winner, he was not good in week one. He was not a good part in that Bengals offense. So I presume that we're going to get McLaurin up to speed, and he's going to start to see more targets in this offense, be more involved, be more productive attached to Jaden Daniels. So I just think right now that the peak hype with Deebo is so high that you can get a lot for him when we know that, look, Deebo, he's not built to last. He's got a long injury track record, and we saw last year how things really fell off when he started to get banged up, and I think that that's probably going to end up happening again for Samuel. So, again, we talked about a lot of these receivers already. We were drafting, I think, Pickens and Ridley ahead of Deebo Samuel pretty consistently. Maybe that was right, maybe that was wrong, but now you can probably get one of those guys plus something else for a player like a Deebo Samuel.
I can't sell Deebo Samuel because I don't have him anywhere. I was kind of fading him. I didn't really trust, it's not that I didn't trust him, I guess. I didn't trust Cliff Kingsbury to use him in unique and interesting ways the way he was in San Francisco. I did feel like eventually Terry McLaurin would be like the clear number one in this offense. Early on, I'm not surprised to see it be Deebo Samuel, given all the other stuff you just said, holdout and everything. And, Daniels did miss a long one to McLaurin that could have made his stat line look a lot better, too. But as the season goes on, I expect it to be more McLaurin than Deebo. That might have been an overreaction, honestly. Like, I came away from this game thinking, like, maybe I was too low on Deebo during the offseason, and I was, like, weighing him down too heavily for, like, he had pneumonia and just kind of like a lost, I just looked at Deebo and I was like, the ceiling has really only been there one season in his career. And like he's pretty old for a guy that you can say that about. So I just didn't want to really mess with it and take the chance on a new team. And I watched this game thinking, maybe I was wrong about that. But I would, if I did have him, I would be interested in selling. I do think like I need to see more to be totally convinced I was wrong. So if I can get something like real significant asset back, if you could trade Deebo Samuel for Calvin Ridley, I'm like sprinting to do that.
I think you probably can. I think that's the thing with Deebo is after 1 week, people will be sold. Okay, he's back. Like, this is the guy that we're super excited about. And I felt like, and I had to move him up my ranking substantially because, again, similar to you, I was really low on him out of the gates, 2025 rankings. But then I started to just accept that, okay, well, Samuel's going to probably start the season pretty good because he's going to be healthy. McLaurin's going to be coming back slowly, and he's still in an offense attached to Jaden Daniels where there's still not a lot of weapons in this offense behind Terry McLaurin. So I kind of felt, okay, he's going to offer a lot of early season value, but you have to be strategic and smart about using Deebo, take advantage of what he does early in the year, but then cash out sooner rather than later because we've seen him break down in the second half of seasons consistently. And I think that's going to probably coincide with McLaurin coming back full speed into the lineup. So we'll see what he does on a short week. They're playing on Thursday night. So maybe if you can't get a deal done today or this week, but something to just kind of keep in the back of your mind. And a lot of the players too we talk about today, you don't necessarily need to sell them like right now. It's just something to kind of keep in mind with, okay, this type of player, he has a sell type of profile. You have to keep that in mind. If a deal arises, okay, maybe I should move this player.
Let's go to your next sell.
Going with J.K. Dobbins, the starting running back for the Broncos in week 1. So he was the volume leader, the snap leader for the Broncos, 16 carries, 63 yards, 3.9 yards per carry. He also scored a red zone rushing touchdown. However, we had a 3 running back committee here in Denver. Sean Payton up to his shenanigans once again. Tyler Bede getting 6 targets out of the backfield. Yeah. Again, Jalen Carter getting ejected on the first play was not on my bingo card. Neither was Tyler Bede getting 6 targets in the first game for the Denver Broncos. Jaleel McLaughlin was ruled inactive before the game. I'm thinking, okay, like Harvey, Dobbins, right? Two-headed monster here. I like this. Sean Payton consolidating the backfield. No. The Tyler Bede love has gone back from last season. He got him involved again. So that's one concern with Dobbins is this morphed into a 3-headed backfield? I think Harvey looked really good on the touches that he did get. He had a 50-yard rush. Again, he played less snaps than J.K. Dobbins, but I don't think that's going to last the rest of the season. I think that Harvey is going to continue to get more and more involved. He's a super talented running back that they drafted real-life draft capital into, so I think he's going to continue to eat into Dobbins' workload. I would say that Dobbins looked okay. His rushing success rate wasn't anything spectacular in week 1. Again, average under 4 yards per carry. Yes, he scored the touchdown, but I think that's why you can get some value for a J.K. Dobbins, who, again, going back to a player like Deebo, what was the first player we talked about last year on the sell high after week 1? It was J.K. Dobbins, and we're like, I don't want to do this because we like J.K. Dobbins so much, but what ended up being the right call was selling J.K. Dobbins after week 1 because we know he's not built to last. Like, J.K. Dobbins, love the man. He's not built to last for the long haul for a 17-game season. So based on him being the RB1 for week 1, I would try to sell high off the touchdown, off the 60-plus rushing yards.
I don't have anything to add. I just totally agree.
Yes, let's go.
I mean, we basically had the conversation last year, right? Only last year there wasn't an RJ Harvey sitting there waiting to take over.
Exactly.
This year it's the same situation, but there's an actual obvious like pivot point for them to make to say this is Harvey's backfield now at some point. Maybe it won't happen. It is Sean Payton that we're talking about. Maybe the opportunity will force itself on him if Dobbins gets hurt, which we're not hoping for. But yeah, like I feel very similarly to last year, if not stronger, because Dobbins is another year older, and more importantly, Harvey's there. So, and now Bidet apparently also. Dude. So, yeah, I totally agree. I think we can move on from Dobbins. Let's go to James Conner is your last player to sell.
Yeah, so this one is tough for me because I liked James Conner a lot in draft season as a draft value. Wasn't a must-have target for me, but someone that I thought was undervalued. And now I'm starting to try to change my opinion. So going back to, are you changing your expectation for players based on new information? And I think that how this backfield was deployed in week 1, I think is changing my outlook for James Conner because this wasn't him clear-cut workhorse like we saw mostly all of last year when Trey Benson was a rookie. This year, it was more of Trey Benson. So Trey Benson played 33% of the snaps while James Conner played 65. Trey Benson's 33% snap share, that was tied for the highest that he saw his entire year as a rookie. So, and I believe in that game last year as a rookie where he played 33% of snaps, it was in a blowout where James Conner wasn't being used. So in a closer back and forth game, the Cardinals were open to using Benson more. He obviously delivered because he had a big explosive run, which we know that at this point in his career, that's not really James Conner's game. So if they're open to doing more of a thunder and lightning type of approach, well, that means that that's going to hurt the bottom line for James Conner. Just if he's seeing less volume overall, again, 16 touches overall for him. Trey Benson had 9. And I think that with Conner, you have to be, this one's tough because they're playing the Carolina Panthers in week 2. So do you want to sell him before they play the Carolina Panthers, who it's obviously a great matchup. James Conner's probably going to be a top 10 running back this week. But after that, you have the 49ers and Seahawks. 2 teams that when they played head-to-head, there was not a lot of running room against either of those teams. So those are 2 tougher matchups. So maybe you can sell James Conner in the idea that, hey, he's playing the Panthers this week, so you can get a lot for him, or you can try to sell him after he plays the Panthers and has a really good game. But, you know, the main point is I think that Benson is going to be more involved than he was last season. That's something that I didn't necessarily think heading into the year, but after week 1, I'm probably changing my opinion on, and I'm kind of lowering Conner. And I think that Conner's someone that...
Do you think Benson's a buy, by the way?
Yes. I think that Benson is still kind of like a waiver wire guy. I think that he's still available on some waivers. I would say Benson is a buy candidate. We've seen this before with some guys where they take that next step in year 2. I thought maybe it could be like a Blake Corum or something like that. That's obviously not the case after his usage in week 1. But Trey Benson, okay, maybe is he this year's like Tank Bigsby type of player where, again, really absent as a rookie, but then, okay, week 1 shows something. Okay, maybe he does eat a little bit more into James Conner's workload, which is what we saw in week 1. And Conner, he looked okay. I would say that it was against the Saints, and the Saints' defensive line is not good. So the fact that Conner didn't necessarily pop off the page, 12 carries for 39 yards. Again, Conner got there because he scored a receiving touchdown. He caught 4 targets for 5 yards. So I think the value with Conner is still there to still get something really strong for returning him, especially because he's playing the Panthers this week. But I think you want to get out of the Conner business sooner rather than later because I think that Trey Benson is going to remain a factor in his backfield moving forward.
Trey Benson is 39% rostered on Yahoo, 53% rostered on ESPN, just to give a sense of where he is, where he's rostered.
I want to ask you, Worm, just about the Panthers situation. So do you think you can wait after he plays the Panthers to sell him again? Again, assuming he has a pretty good game and then 2 tougher matchups coming up after that? Or do you not risk it because you want to be able to move him and kind of entice the other manager, hey, he's playing the Panthers this week, you should buy James Conner for me. Like, how would you approach it? Because I'm trying to figure out what would work for me to get the most of return while also not trying to give up a potential smash week from James Conner.
I think it depends on the league you're in. Really, really what it depends on, honestly, for me is less like convincing them about James Conner and more about like if Trey Benson has a better week
True,
again,
yeah.
then I think that will be even if Conner has a good week, but Benson has a great week because of the matchup, then to me, that is the scarier proposition of like missing out on the window to sell Conner because I think people are always excited and optimistic about like the young guy breakout. Like you want to be right about that. It's fun to be right about Trey Benson. So if he has a big second week, to me, that impacts Conner's value more than what Conner does.
No, that's a really good point. I like that.
In fantasy sports, flexibility is everything, especially when you're managing injuries, bye weeks, or tough matchups. Your finances deserve the same level of control, and that's exactly what Klarna delivers. Klarna is your smarter, everyday spending partner. Inside the app, you can track purchases, compare prices, find deals, earn cash back, and choose to pay now or later with no interest when payments are made on time. It's the kind of tool that helps you stretch your money further and make every purchase count. This isn't about spending more, it's about spending wisely. Klarna fits seamlessly into how you already shop, whether you're picking up groceries, upgrading tech, or even just keeping an eye on your budget. Klarna gives you the financial flexibility to shop smart and stay in control, just like a good roster move. Download the Klarna app or head to Klarna.com to learn more. CA resident loans made or arranged pursuant to a California finance law license, NMLS number 1353190. Klarna balance account required. Klarna may get a commission. Limitations, terms, and conditions apply. All right, let's go to the quarterbacks and tight ends. We're going to kind of, loop these guys together. There's fewer names to be working with, so there's less to really talk about here. So one buy for you amongst this, pair of positions and one sell. What's your buy?
Justin Herbert, quarterback buy. I think
he looked good.
He looked fantastic, and the thing that I noticed the most was he was just running so much in this Greg Roman offense, and he set career highs in rushing last year despite entering the season with the foot injury. So we had heard rumblings this offseason, okay, Justin Herbert's going to run more. It's like, okay, let's wait to see it. And then from the jump against the Chiefs on Friday on YouTube, he's basically running all over the place, just making plays. And we know Justin Herbert is a super talented quarterback, what he saw in the beginning of his career. Now he's kind of fallen off a little bit in terms of fantasy the last couple seasons, but maybe it's the fact that he's running more. The fact that Keenan Allen is back on the roster. He has McConkey in year 2. And Quentin Johnson, look, I don't know how reliable that guy is, but he catches touchdowns, most of the touchdowns. So I think Herbert is just slated to be an absolute monster at the fantasy quarterback position this year. He has all the recipe, all the ingredients to be that league-winning quarterback. And because he was going so late in drafts this year, maybe you can still acquire him with your quarterback plus a skill position player. I would be trying to send deals for Justin Herbert, and I'm trying to rank him aggressively in the rest of season rankings because I'm just so impressed by what he did against the Chiefs and just what his season-long outlook can be.
And remember, so he 7 for 32 yards, but this is one where you had to have watched the game because he had a 23 or 24 yard rush that was called back due to penalty that would have put him, over 50 rushing yards in the game. And just watching him, even when he wasn't scrambling and actually, on his 7 rushing attempts, even aside from those, he just looked really mobile to me. I'm sure you had the same reaction. I thought eye test wise, that was the best game I saw. Besides Lamar versus Allen, because those guys are on a different level from pretty much everybody else. I thought that was the best game a quarterback played besides those two this whole week 1. He just looked insane, honestly. And the stats backed it up. It's not like it's just an eye test thing, but the stats plus the eye test, I came away thinking every year there's a quote unquote pocket passer who ends up running hot on touchdowns and is QB4 on the season. I think Herbert could be that and also run a bit more. It's just 1 week, so again, we don't want to totally overreact, but that's a good defense. It wasn't at home, and he just looked awesome. So I'm fully in agreement. I would buy high. And by the way, I didn't say buy low, right? I said buy because you can buy high and still that. To me, buying high and selling low is sneaky, the most important skill you can have because it's very easy to find opportunities to buy low and sell high, and we still want to talk about them. I'm not diminishing those conversations, but buying high and selling low to me is like kind of the best way to differentiate yourself from your league mates and your opponents. And I think buying high on Justin Herbert is very smart.
Would you trade Tyreek Hill for Justin Herbert?
In a heartbeat.
Right.
I also don't have a lot of Tyreek Hill because I was fading him, and that proved early on to be correct.
Unfortunately, I don't think Waddle's going to get it done for me.
Yeah. All right, buy Justin Herbert. Who are you selling?
So same game. I'm selling Travis Kelce. I just was not inspired whatsoever in terms of the lack of targets that he was getting in that week 1 game. No Rashee Rice. Travis Kelce knocks out Xavier Worthy first drive of the game, and yet he only puts up a 10.3% target share despite running a route on 81% of the drop back. So I know that he scored the perfectly schemed up touchdown pass from Patrick Mahomes, but I'm just not optimistic that Kelce's going to take full advantage of this window where all these Chiefs receivers are hurt, and yet who is leading the team in targets? It's not Travis Kelce. Like, if it didn't happen in week 1 against the Chargers in a game that the Chiefs were trailing, they were trying to catch up, it wasn't Kelce that was stepping up and commanding this high amount of targets in this offense. It was Marquise Brown that was making plays, Juju Smith-Schuster out there commanding targets, Tyquan Thornton seeing downfield looks, not Travis Kelce. So I was worried about Kelce entering the season just after the dramatic fall off from last year. And even if he does have a boost in production in this time period where Worthy is out, Rice is out, those guys are going to come back at some point. So I don't want any part of Kelce if he's going to fall off in the second half of the season when I need his production the most. So I think I'm trying to sell high on the idea that, hey, he's going to see a boatload of targets over the next couple weeks when we just saw week 1 play out, and that was not the case whatsoever. And just continuing the trend of downward production from Kelce, and I'm hoping that I can move him off of the touchdown and off of the idea that he's going to see a lot of targets, just because I'm not that optimistic that it's going to be the case.
Let's go to our buy, sell, or hold segment. I'm going to throw some trios your way, and you're going to tell me pick one of them to buy, one of them to sell, one of them to hold. This can be, thinking about it like in terms of head-to-head against the names themselves, but it can also be like in a vacuum, even if I'm ranking like a guy that you are ranking ahead of the other 2 names that I give you, you can still say a sell if you just think they kind of fit that category best, if that makes sense. So it does, saying that you're selling doesn't mean he's your least favorite guy. It just means you think he fits that answer best. But these are intended to be names that are roughly in the same range rest of season. Normally, you will see these ahead of time. I did kind of come up with these very last second just due to some scheduling stuff and prepping for the show. So this will be you shooting from the hip here. We'll see how it goes. Buy, sell, or hold. I got 2 running back trios and 2 receiver trios. First at running back, Omarion, Hampton, Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker.
Oh, man. What an elite running back group to start with. So, got to buy Breece Hall. I just thought that the guy looked absolutely fantastic in week 1. I thought schematically he fit what the Jets were trying to do offensively, and yeah, so I'm all the way back in. It took me 1 week, but yes, Breece Hall would be the buy for me. I think Hampton and Ken Walker are tougher because I didn't think Hampton necessarily looked that great in week 1. I thought that he was fine. He is also a rookie, so I'm trying to kind of keep that in mind, and I don't think that I necessarily want to just write him off after 1 game. So I think, but at the same time, you can't sell Ken Walker right now because you're not going to get anything for him. So I think I would probably sell Hampton just because you can still get a lot for him. And in the back of my mind is Worm's voice talking to me about Greg Roman doesn't use a bell cow. Najee Harris could get more involved now that he's kind of getting back his legs back underneath him. So I think Hampton probably just because I think you can probably get, like I would trade Hampton to get Breece Hall. To be like as an example.
Okay.
So if we're talking about selling,
I don't know if everybody would do that. That's an interesting point to make. I don't know if everybody out there would make that choice. Just after 1 week, yeah.
I just really wanted to see because I know Breece Hall's a talented guy. Like that was never my hesitation. It was okay. Is this offense going to be? Is this going to be a disaster? And week 1 it wasn't, and they just used him in the exact way I hoped that they would. Whereas Hampton, he didn't really jump off the page to me. I thought that he was fine. So I think that I would make that move for Breece Hall from Omarion Hampton. And then with Walker, I think he's a hold for me. I want to see how this backfield plays out in week 2. Now, it looked like Charbonnet was the guy in week 1. but was that because Walker was coming back from, so much time off? He didn't really play in the preseason. Maybe they were just kind of easing him in. And Walker started the game still. And the thing that was interesting was Walker had all the targets in the backfield. Charbonnet had 0 targets. So I thought that was kind of peculiar too, where yes, Charbonnet looked better as a rusher, got the more red zone, scored the red zone rushing touchdown, but Walker had 3 targets. So not ready to completely write him off. I do want to see another week of it, but if we come on week 2 or entering week 3 and it's just like the Charbonnet show again, well, it's like, well, got to take the L on Walker after 2 weeks. It's clearly Charbonnet is the guy. So I will hold Walker just because also too, if you trade Walker now, you're not going to get, I mean, if someone sends you a Walker for Charbonnet deal, are they accepting it? like that's kind of where I feel like I think they're just gonna press the reject button and move on.
Well, Breece Hall at least seems like a strong buy. You can use the trade analyzer at fantasypros.com/myplaybook or on the MyPlaybook app to instantly evaluate how any trade will affect your team for this week, the rest of the season, or even in Dynasty. Our other running back trio here: Erickson, Isiah Pacheco, Bill Crosket-Merrit, and Javonte Williams.
Okay, so Javonte talked about already. He's a hold. I think that you ride it out. I think it was a good pick. You don't need to trade him. You don't need to sell him. Just have him on your team. Be happy that you picked him. Pacheco would be the sell for me. Just more of the committee usage, not the pre-injury usage that we saw from Pacheco. I don't think that Pacheco necessarily was bad, but the Chiefs are just using a running back by committee. They like using Kareem Hunt, especially at the goal line, which is really annoying for a guy like Pacheco. And right now, the vibes, again, talking about vibes about the Dolphins, Chiefs vibes, not great. Super Bowl hangover, maybe a little bit. That's a little bit concerning with the Chiefs. So I think I'm cool with fading Pacheco. So I'm willing to be wrong about Pacheco and his upside this year. And then who's the last guy? That's the guy I want to buy. What was his name? Bill. Oh yeah, Bill. You gotta buy Bill. Yes, Bill. Yes, you gotta buy Bill Crosket-Merrit. Dude, the minute that Chris Rodriguez is made inactive, is like, oh baby, wheels up for Jacory, Crosket-Merrit. He checked off all the boxes, dude, week 1. Again, against the fierce Giants defensive line, was not held back. I think he's got a top 24 floor. Again, they view him as Brian Robinson plus juice. Brian Robinson was a locked and loaded top 24 running back. You felt good about starting him. He's got touchdown upside. And I think that in this scheme with Daniels, he's going to benefit from so many favorable looks where, because there's the mobility of the quarterback, you're getting the linebackers put in uncomfortable positions, and Jacory Crosket-Merrit is taking full advantage of that. Averaged over 8 yards per carry in the first game, looked explosive. So I think it's kind of off to the races for Bill, and I think that he might be undervalued still what his actual ceiling can be, which I think is much closer to top 24, top 20 running back now that we feel secure about his role. And if Austin Eckler is really the only clear competition for touches, I mean, Eckler is an older player past his prime. So I think it's really wheels up, sky high for Mr. Bill.
We'll go quicker on the receivers just because I got to get going here. First wide receiver trio: Zay Flowers, Ricky Pearsall, Emeka Egbuka.
Oh, man. Yeah. Okay, so let's see.
Pearsall and Egbuka I really wanted to put together because I had them together like basically throughout draft season, at least by the end of it. And they also are coming off of good games in their own respective ways. And so I was trying to find a good third receiver to include with them. But those were the first 2 names I wrote down were Pearsall and Egbuka.
Okay, so let's see. I think that you got to hold Egbuka. I think that the guy's just too talented and too good. And the fact that he does it as his first game ever, I think that just shows you the type of ceiling he has. And even when Chris Godwin comes back, I don't know how much of a factor he's going to be. So I will hold on to Egbuka. I mean, are you guys ready to Zay Flowers? I know everyone did not like Zay Flowers a lot in fantasy, so it's like, man, this guy's really good. Like,
no, let me answer this one. You're correct about holding Egbuka. Buy Pearsall. I think he's going to be awesome this year, and sell Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers is a very good receiver, but he is particularly good against the type of defensive coverages that the Bills throw your way. That was a big reason why they lost in the playoffs last year. Yeah, and so I'm not surprised he had a big game against the Bills. I mean, the Ravens in that game, Sam Hoppen, our former coworker, posted an explosive play, kind of like rankings of everybody. The Ravens had an explosive play in that game, 23.5% of their plays, which was first by a mile. The gap between them and second place was the same between the gap between second place and 13th place in week 1. That's an out. Like, the Ravens, I think, are probably, if healthy, going to be the best offense in football this year. It's not going to be by that kind of outlier, and it's not going to be where all of the passing game production goes to Zay Flowers. So if anybody is believing that he is like a league winner because of that first game, like I would sell him, buy, like I said, Pearsall and hold Egbuka.
No, I think that you're right. It just feels bad because, like it shows just the ceiling that Flowers has in an offense that, imagine if he did get double-digit targets every single week, right? Like how, because he's such a good player.
Yeah.
Like he's such a fun player. He's so good after the catch. He's dynamic. But to your point, Mark Andrews always sucks against the Bills, no matter what it is. He just doesn't do anything against that team. He's not going to see one target every single week. That's going to flatten out a little bit. So I would agree with you. You can get a lot for, especially in a primetime game. I mean, like we're coming on the show and it's like, oh man, I got to sell Zay Flowers. But to your point, you can get a lot for him. And then Slick Rick, I mean, to the moon, even with Mac Jones.
Yeah. All right, last wide receiver trio. I do have to go quickly on this one. Odunze, Michael Pittman Jr., or Keenan Allen?
Okay, so I'm going to hold Odunze, second-year player, showing potential with Caleb Williams. I like that, so I'm going to hold on to Odunze. Michael Pittman, I'd probably sell. I think that the Colts receiver room is still pretty crowded where maybe he's not going to give you the biggest return long-term, and I know that he scored touchdowns. I don't think Daniel Jones is going to necessarily play that well. He's also playing the Broncos in week 2. So what did we just talk about with Surtain? Who's he going to be on? It's probably going to be on Michael Pittman. So that's not a matchup that you like. So I think that it is time to just, sell high on Michael Pittman, take the profit. And then the, who's the last guy again? I'm so bad at this. Who's the last guy?
It's okay. Normally you would have these in front of you. This was kind of thrown together. It was Odunze, Pittman, and Keenan Allen.
Oh yeah. So then I would buy Keenan Allen, right? Because he's probably the cheapest player that you can acquire just because he was drafted so late. But what do you see? Justin Herbert's one of his best buddies. I think maybe if you could flip Pittman to get Keenan Allen right now, they could probably do that.
We'll wrap things up with one mailbag question here from the Twitter audience. We'll be posting those every week, so if you have any trade questions of your own, feel free to respond to that tweet, and we will talk about it on the show here each week. We've got one for you today. Should I trade TJ Hockenson? And if so, what should I expect, for compensation?
Well, I believe that Hockenson's not coming off the greatest game. Yeah, he only had 3 catches for 15 yards on 4 targets. So I don't know if you're going to be able to get a lot for Hockenson. I think you might need to wait a week just to see him pop off a little bit again. Obviously, McCarthy showed, hey, he can be a good quarterback for fantasy. It took him a little bit of time. So I think that you want to wait on. I think he's a hold for me, especially with Addison out for the next couple weeks. I think we could see Hockenson bounce back, and then I would probably try to sell before Addison returns to the lineup. So I would wait, and then maybe try to get another tight end either coming off a poor performance or some of the buy players we talked about on today. Maybe like a Calvin Ridley, another receiver. If you need a receiver, maybe Calvin Ridley's a target that you use Hockenson to try to acquire if that team also needs a tight end.
We'll go ahead and wrap things up there. For Erickson, I'm Ryan Wormeli. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll be with you every Tuesday all season long. We'll see you next time.